then he had the consent form in his hand for me to sign, so I understand all the risks before I go through the surgery. Then when he explained me all the risks was all, I don't even like to think about it, what he was telling me. And the biggest risk was, he said to me, after the surgery, you can be paralyzed. And he said there's a 50-50 chance, and he said, I'm not lying, I'm not just telling you because I have to get you to sign, because a couple of my patients, it did happen to them. So I was just sitting there, and my eyes were just full of water. Then I started crying. Then, without even thinking, all I said to consultant, I said, look, I've gone through all that. I trust in the Lord. You just go ahead, you do whatever you got to do. Then he started looking at my face weirdly. What is she trying to say? And I said to him, let me sign the form. And he said, no, Kristina, nobody's here yet, and you on your own here. I don't want you to sign. And he didn't let me sign the form. And he said, who is your next of kin? Then I told all about James and my mom. They're looking after me. And he said, come back after 2 days on 13th with them. I want to explain all the risks to your family. Then I will take the step ahead. So we went there. Then on 13th, he explained all the risks again. Then because we couldn't really do anything, we didn't have much choice. Whether I gone for surgery or not, my legs was going to give up anyway. So he explained all the risks to James, and all James said to him, he said, look, we've got no choice. We've got to go for the surgery. We'll just pray for you, and the Lord will help you to do everything right. Then he said, okay. We signed the form, then we come back home. And on the 14th of January, we went there, and I was going to have a surgery on 15th. And in the morning, James went there, and they was ready to take me for surgery 11 o'clock. Then we both sat together. I was very upset and disheartened. I was looking at his face, and I thought, I don't know if I'm going to come out from the theatre or he will see me again, or I was thinking about my daughters and just everything really. Then I went for surgery. Then after that, James, he will explain, because I didn't know when I come out from theatre what happened, and the surgeon, he told him whatever happened, and he will just explain,
I think the actual surgery, took about 5, maybe 6 hours, then they kept her in there for another couple of hours, and then the surgeon eventually came out to me where I was in the waiting room. And he wasn't alone, he was with somebody else, and he kind of looked like a social worker kind of person. And they sat me down and said, right, okay, we took out the tumour and the operation was a complete success. So we managed to get every last bit out. So obviously I'm joyful and pleased. And then he says, but. And then he said it again, he says, but. He says, where the tumour was, I think he described it as the TH section, at the top of the spine. He said, and the actual spinal cord, he said, the only way I could describe it, he said it was like a piece of paper. He said it was absolutely flattened. And he says, I'm not going to pull any punches, I'll tell you straight as it is because that's how you need to know. He said, there's a very slim chance that she'll ever walk again. He said, because you just do not recover from that kind of damage. So, as you can imagine, I just felt as if my insides were being ripped out. And I'm thinking to myself, you hear about this, and in the past when somebody described a traumatic experience, you just think of it as a bad experience, and for the first time in my life I felt it was traumatic. So anyway, so I'm in the hospital and I thought, right, I found my mum and tell her what's happening. So I'm trying to get reception on my phone, and I found myself going into like a hallway, but it seemed as if it was disused. The more further down I travelled, the more reception I got, but the darker it was getting. And I've seen many horror films in the past, and it was now as if I'm in one. And eventually got reception, and there's a light switch there. And to switch the light switch on, it didn't work, so it was typical. So I'm now in darkness, which is how my life felt at that particular time. So I found my mum, and I'm not really an emotional type of person, never have been, but at that particular stage it was. And my mum said, she said, look, you have to pull yourself together and pray, and you've been taught all your life that God makes everything better and He will make it better. So if you find getting the strength somehow, I know it's hard, but you have to do it and pray. So I did. And what was making it worse was because when all this was going on, Kristina's cousin, she was only 17 in India, she passed away. My grandmother passed away on the 5th as well. And so it's just a combination. So you could say the devil was having a good go. And so I prayed, and I just prayed. And I said, Lord, I said, whatever's happened has happened, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. I've come this far, please don't let me lose focus in where we're supposed to be going. If they are saying that Kristina will be paralysed, then so be it. If that's the case, that will be the case. As long as I've got her with me, it's my family. And if I have to carry her to church, I will carry her to church. I will make sure we get there. And so I prayed, and then I've gone back in the waiting room, took a deep breath, and I felt better. And as I'm waiting there, I can see Kristina going past on the bed, and she was facing the way. I could recognise it was her by her hair. And she turned and she smiled at me, and I knew from that instance that she doesn't know what the doctors or the surgeons have said. So now thinking, how do I explain to a 29-year-old that this is what she will be going through, that she may never walk again? And so anyway, I'm talking to her, and I'm watching what the nurses are doing, and there's no movement. And just going back, the surgeon at the time, he also said, he said, look, he said, walking's one thing, he said, but it would be very hard to have for her to have any sensation at all. And so as I'm there, I've prayed, I'm a bit more confident in what we're fighting together, whatever it is. And the nurses are checking it, and as the nurse is going past, she's brushed past Kristina's foot, and the foot's kind of gone backwards like that. So I'm thinking, well, the doctor said that it would be at least a few weeks before there is any sensation, if there was going to be any. So I went running after the nurse, didn't tell Kristina what I was doing. And I had a word with the nurse. She said, look, don't really know what's going on, but if it's against what the doctor said, then it's only good news. So I've then gone back out, and I felt as if I was a little child phoning my mum and saying, look, you was right. I prayed, and this is what's happened. I've sensed some movement. And just as I finished phoning, I saw the surgeons. And the surgeon said to him, I said, look, I said, you said this, but this is happening. And he said, well, let's go and have a look and see what's going on. So on the one hand he said it was positive, but then on the other hand he said, look, he said it's probably just reflexes. I mean, it was very negative, and about as negative as it could be. And then